Alina Vasilyeva is head of the German department in Janus Worldwide Translation Company. She began as a translator and an editor, and since 2010 she's head of the German department. The floor is yours, Alina. Thank you very much. I hope you're having a lovely weather and you're in a good mood. As I said, I'm head of the German project department in Janus company, and as you may as well guess by the name, I'm responsible for translation projects from and into German language. Right now I go to my presentation. Please hang on a minute. As I feel, our industry is more than other industry prone to trends and vogues, because we're working with language, and language is constantly changing in a very fast pace due to technology development and globalization. The topic of my presentation is organizational development by example of a translation company department. Thank you very much for the organizers of UTIC. This topic made me think about certain aspects and consider my own work in an unconventional way, because we tend to forget things, or we do not think about them when we do the usual tasks. To begin with, I want to share my own experiences and thoughts on the changes within my department over the last few years. Afterwards, I suggest we talk about the changes that take place in your companies. I hope you'll have some ideas to share. And I'd be really interesting to hear freelance translators and their views on the subject, because I'm more of a manager, and this is my view as a manager and a project manager. So it's really hard for me to evaluate how does the organizational changes in the structure actually affect translators' work. I believe that at first I'll do the presentation and then we'll head for questions. But if in process of my presentation you have any question, there's absolutely no problem if we make a quick break to answer your questions. To begin with, a brief introduction of my company, Janus Worldwide. This year, it's 20 years anniversary of our company. I work since 2009. I've been working there. And when I only arrived, our office in Moscow was located in two small, relatively small rooms, so we knew all the employees. Right now, our staff has considerably increased in order to treat all the colleagues for a birthday party. A couple of cakes won't do. Our kitchen would simply not big enough for all of our staff. Of course, all our staff includes not only the Moscow office. The figures you can see on the slide, I mean. On the next slide, I identified certain factors that influence the organizational structure of our department. So the selection is rather subjective. If your view differs, or if you'd like to add something, I have nothing against it. Feel free to do it, please. So first is our area of activities. This is services, of course. If we're talking about services, then the most important thing is clients' needs, of course. If the client's not satisfied with something, they'd leave you, and if you don't have customers, well, there's no service you can do. Number and volume of orders. Well, the more translations you have, the more people you need. That's quite obvious. And the more people you have, the more organized and structured your organization needs to be. Organizational size. If it's a big organization, it's likely to have quite large departments as well. Technologies that are being used. And finally, expertise, staff expertise, and I would also mention the specializations. So now let's go through this list in more detail. We have several departments in our company. If we're talking about translation departments, so usually they specialize on certain subject areas, i.e., all translational companies provide services for clients who work in various spheres. It can be facility production, they can also make promo clips and ads. Of course, technical translators are having quite hard time to translate some sort of marketing slogans that have to do with beauty industry. Then if we running low on orders, one department might be enough, and even one PF might suffice. So when he's managing his program, be it a technical project or a marketing one, this manager would just send various types of the text to various people. But if you have a large workflow of orders, you'd need several departments. That was the principle of the development of our organization. Well, and quite an important role in the formation of department goes to special tools. This is the last point on my slide. For example, I wouldn't give localization of a video game to the same PM who is usually responsible for technical documentation, or vice versa. A little bit about my department into more detail. Unlike most departments in my company, this department was formed according to language principle. So, for example, our employees have to speak German. Furthermore, we have to use three communication languages in our work. German translations. Not only German-speaking clients need them, that is why we also use English in our work. Thirdly, because we deal with different translation tools and they're not always clear to us, we must know CAT tools like the back of our hand and various other translation tools as well. I have to warn you that the next slide shows a relatively fuzzy division by years. As I was preparing for the presentation, I was thinking about and I realized that the main difference in terms of requirements to our translators over the years, be they in-house or freelance translator, is a very simple fact. Right now, it's not enough to get the hang of language and subject areas. I say it's simple, and I imagine how angry must be the translators that are listening to me right now. However, it's a fact of life right now. If you can't work in certain translation tools, or if you're not willing to learn it, then the chances are that our cooperation would be rather scarce and rare. But if you're ready to be trained and to learn, then we move on to the next slide and we'll see what happens. Yes, we are ready to train our employees. We are working on it rather actively right now. We know that in the majority of translation companies, not only in Janus, that you have the internal trainings, that they train freelancers as well as in-house translators. So a few years ago, you'd rather be invited to office so that they'd show you everything in the office. So over the last few years, everybody has switched to webinars as a means of training. Many CAT providers also use this tool, and they offer free webinars for translators. I know of this. Pushkin was right. The translators really serve as post horses of progress. So what other changes occurred in my department over the years I'm working there? So in my department specifically, 4 years ago, our PMs were mostly working with their email. So orders came by email, and all adjustments with the clients, with the translators, with the editors, everything happened via email. They received the order via email. Right now, we can direct our orders to translators, track status, and even receive files in the right company within our own ERP system. So certain clients would prefer the project to be automatically uploaded in our system as soon as we receive the order from the client. Long gone is the time when we did all the accounting in the Excel tables. On the second point, of course, I'm slightly hamming it up. In 2010, everybody has already been using the translator's workbench, transit, across, etc. However, working in using simple MS Word or MS Excel was still quite widespread. Right now, some of the clients can send us 1 or 2 words to be translated in across package, and I'm absolutely serious about it. This really happens. The third point could have been met with the first one. So this is really interconnected. Translation management system, TMS or ERPs, have become a usual feature of our working day. Short. In Japan, they choose a word of a year each year. So the population votes, they choose a hieroglyph, and very solemnly, famous calligrapher writes it in a special piece of parchment that is being hanged in a very public place. Last year, this was the hieroglyph cheap. They say, or the web says, that because exchange rate of Vienna fell and so the price for oil, these developments influenced the choice. And the word of 2015 in our company, I would say, is automatization. Automatization process was launched long before, but it is last year that it was very much the buzzword among our employees. One could also write it beautifully and hang it in our office so that everybody could see. Automatization is inter alia better, makes clients and translator communicates better, but this is only my subjective view. And also, I must separate the fact that the client needs are growing. When I only began my work in the company, clients paid attention first to the terms, on how fast the translation was delivered. Well, of course, I'm hamming it up a little bit, but the fact that the client didn't actually care which signs we're using in the document precisely, whether we have an extra space, and in recent years they pay attention even to these minute details. Right now the accents have really switched to quality. Many clients use multi-stage quality control system, so several companies are involved in here. They meticulously follow the actuality of TMs and glossaries, but at the same time the terms remain quite short, I'm afraid, still. So we're developing, we're not at a standstill, and in my department over the last years we began using various tools, a wider range of tools, so that our quality level would be increased. And if you make a slight detour, if we recall the previous slides and the training, is that our translators and editors who know several tools are trying to enhance their knowledge via webinars, specialized webinars, and some of them are actually trainers who hold their own webinars. In general, I told you everything I planned. To motivate you, ask questions and hold the discussions, I'd like to present my own questions to you. First of all, has the organizational structure of departments in your company changed over the years? Question number 2. What do you think has caused those changes and what changes are about to come? And a question for translator. Have you noticed changes in translation companies you are working with, if be you in-house translator or freelancer there?
Do we have any replies to these questions? Or maybe questions to me? Can I answer, please? I have a question, but not. I've left my contacts for the future. Can I please reply? And then you'll have a chance to ask. I wanted to say that we had quite a similar situation, and that's the answer to the first question. When we talk about stages for transition or progressing, we had quite similar steps. Being in the position of transition, we tried to get rid of Excel and Microsoft Word files. We tried to minimize number of clicks of PMs, and not only PMs. We had times when we tried to calculate what's going to be more beneficial to us. We had our own client management system. We kept improving it, and we are doing it till now. Excel files turned into separate models in this system. New models are added. Everything is aimed at optimizing the information processing about orders and clients. Everything is quite similar to what you said. Yeah, I think these processes are quite global, and they can be very actual for all kinds of translation companies. Somebody mentioned they had a question. Vladimir Likutin, Tech Pereklad. I wanted to ask how you solve issues with documentation, which is half technical, half marketing. How do you understand which department is going to deal with this? And if you cannot allocate it to any of those departments, how do you solve this issue? It's not a secret that many companies have similar processes of management, and project involves a lot of translators. After them, their work, editors continue working, and then proofreaders and rewriters. If we talk about marketing, how would I solve such a case? I would ask technical translator to do the initial portion of the work, so that the technical terms would be used properly, and then the editor and proofreader would check up the style at later stages of the translation, or probably rewrite the text, taking into account the target audience. I meant not the process of allocating, but how do we estimate which category this particular translation belongs to, if we mean that we have several departments? How do marketing departments get their orders? Is it a general system where all the orders are allocated to different departments? Or do I understand correctly that if you see the marketing order from a customer, that then the corresponding department will get this order? Or if we have a catalog where we can see a lot of technical details, for example, the first 4 pages are about marketing, and the rest of the document is about marketing. How do you solve such issues? That's what I meant. Okay, frankly speaking, the borders between departments are very fuzzy. At the initial stages, we really estimate, the project managers usually estimate the inquiries from clients, what subject field is involved in a particular query, and then they decide and make their decision which department is going to deal with this. But no, our departments have no prohibition about cooperation. I talked about history of our company, how the departments were created, formed. They were created under the subject principle, but now it's slightly differently. Texts about marketing would of course be allocated to marketing department, but they would be able to ask their colleagues from other departments to help. I hope I've answered. Zavadski Igor, Logros. I wanted to ask about marketing translation. What are the standard speed of translation or capacity of your translators per hour? They are not very precise. Everything depends on the contractors and the complexity of text. Approximately 2,000 words per day per translator. If we talk about marketing, we can give more time if the text is difficult. You can understand that it's hard work. Yeah, marketing sets lower quantity of words per day. Not twice lower, but a little bit lower. Alexander Bondarenko, Translatel company. Please tell us, you have mentioned educational initiatives of Janus. I know Janus is quite humble. I know you do a lot. You organize practice for students. You work with freelancers. Yeah, that's true. Can you tell more about that? And I'd like you to mention about one of the aspects. We also do this, but free of charge, and we always have the reward in other meanings. I've also heard such practices. If they train a resource, they set their conditions. What would you say about that? What are your initiatives? I can talk only about my department. Honestly, I haven't heard of any educational initiatives in our company. At least I know that we do such services free of charge. I mean, if we train some translators, we count on the reward in terms of cooperating with this translator. But our policy is that many CAT providers provide webinars for freelancers, but usually they are delivered in English or German. And secondly, if I know a project manager personally, the translators would put themselves more friendly if they know each other personally. That's my opinion. I hope I've answered your question. If you need some details, please say so. Hello, Alina, Affiliate Translation Agency. For 20 years of work, what quality assurance tools have you used and you are using now? Have you encountered essential steps in terms of changing the process of quality assurance. In our company, we have a department dedicated to final checks of quality with QA tools. The range of these tools is much wider than that used by our managers. We use Xbench. We have internal checks in Acres, in Strada Studio, but we try to customize them. We have fine tuning and we change the default settings. We also use Linguistic Toolbox LTB quite actively. Our colleagues from Quality Control Department use AirSpy, Verifica, but I cannot say how actively they use these tools. It often depends on particular management and project needs and requirements. Thank you, Alina. It seems to me we have no questions for today. Okay, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. Goodbye.